Okay, today's going to be a different kind of video from my usual type of content. So if you didn't know, in the past 5 years or so, with the rise in popularity of anime, a lot of different companies have been doing their best to implement themselves in this market and squeeze it for everything it's worth. Well, kind of. Companies like Netflix, Crunchyroll, and even Disney Plus are releasing anime on their respected streaming platforms and just slapping an original title on top of it. Like they really had anything to do with making it in the first place. And whether you think these companies, quote unquote, producing anime content and slapping it on their platforms is a good thing, I think we can all agree that most of the times it ends up hurting the series, not because of the quality, but by the way they're handled by said company. And with that being said, I wanted to start by talking about the smallest issue that comes from being licensed and held exclusively to one platform. And that's, well, just lowering the exposure of any particular series. Now, if it's a platform like Crunchyroll that's pretty much the anime streaming service, yeah, it's probably going to reach its target audience and gain the most popularity. But if it's held down to others like Disney or Netflix, let's be for real, you're not subscribed to them for that kind of content, and I'd argue a wide majority aren't either. Unless it's anime like Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan, or Dragon Ball, odds are you're not going to Netflix just because you were slightly interested in Uncle from Another World. Either way, I think that spreading out anime like this and buying the license exclusive for your platform makes it much harder, especially for newer series that are just starting out. But that's not really the big issue with these companies buying up the rights to these series and flipping them as their originals. You see, Netflix and Disney share a commonality in this anime acquisition debacle, and that's them mishandling these properties. When I say mishandle, it's more the way they distribute them by locking them up until they finish so they're bingeable, and that would be all fine if they actually released it once the series completed, but they keep it locked up months after it's finished with no reason why. This has happened to numerous series on these services before, but the difference was you could find those other series on other platforms. So basically, these streaming companies are holding on to the properties for no reason while essentially slowly killing any hype or excitement for the series in the process. Anime like Beastars, JoJo Part 6, and even the recent Summertime Rendering have all been victims of this. The only real difference is if this was a newer series like Summertime Rendering with no real previous fanbase other than the manga community, this could potentially cause serious damage to that franchise as a whole. And then that streaming platform could decide not to license it again due to poor performance, all because of their own decisions. Or hold on to it until the series dies out completely. It's not all too unrealistic either. Hell, we've seen Netflix remove shows in the past that have had huge fan bases with tons of support for no apparent reason. Plus, the fact that Disney Plus is now following this trend to buy up licenses makes me even more scared for the future of anime. And if you don't know yet, Disney Plus did pick up Summertime Rendering last spring when it initially started airing. And yes, technically you could stream it while it was airing if you lived in Japan or some East Asian countries. But it almost took them a whole year and almost 5 months after it finished to release it to the rest of the world. And on top of that, they released it with no trailer or announcement to even advertise it. It just feels like they don't care about the product they're carrying and forget about it until months later when they remember, oh wait, we still have this. And it frustrates the hell out of me because they are potentially setting the series up for failure. Now, my last point is kind of an older subject by now, but it still contributes to my argument. You might remember around 2020 when Crunchyroll started to roll out their own originals with the release of adaptations like Tower of God, Noblesse, and even God of High School. Essentially adapting popular manga and Korean webtoons, giving them exposure to a wider audience. And I'll say this right now, I was really excited for this since there are a lot of quality manhwa out there that didn't really have a chance to get an anime. But the way Crunchyroll handled this whole process was just awful. There were a ton of instances where studios that were animating these manhwa were expected to adapt an impossible amount of chapters in just 12 to 13 episodes. Like Noblesse, for example, skipped the first 100 chapters and ended around chapter 180, while God of High School ended up adapting the first 100 chapters or so. Just for comparison, that's basically if they adapted Chainsaw Man in its entirety, yet season 1 is only at chapter 30 at the time of this video. And the studios that were adapting these series are not bad in the slightest. Hell, God of High School had the same director as Jujutsu Kaisen. They just did their best with what was given to them. So, in my opinion, all the blame is placed solely on the people who are funding it, Crunchyroll themselves. And yes, some did fare better than others like Tower of God, which a lot of the cuts they made to the stories weren't as bad, But the fact that they gave these studios such unrealistic demands is still ridiculous. I'm glad X-Arms was pretty much the nail in the coffin for Crunchyroll originals, or at least forces them to rethink how they treat the adaptations they're funding. Anyways, if all these companies keep up these terrible decisions, I could see it possibly having a detrimental effect on the medium itself. And I'm sure some of you have already had an anime you were really excited about have one of these things happen to them already. I just think we should demand better from these companies that are trying to capitalize on the current trending thing while mishandling it in the process. But anyways guys, I want to know what you think. Do you think this could be the downfall of anime, or do you think it will just fix itself with time? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like and subscribing. It really helps out the channel. Also, if you guys like this kind of video, let me know down in the comments as well. I really enjoy diving into these sorts of topics. Anyways, that's pretty much all for me. Thanks guys. Later.